Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Robbie the Painter here. This is the beginner series, and this is episode 2, and I'm calling this Distance and Perspective. So if you followed along with me doing this on the first episode, where we learned how to do some trees and put it in the sky and get your idea on the canvas, and our idea was a tree. Now we turned one tree into a couple because I showed you how to do several. And if you don't know how to do these, watch that first episode. This is very cool. Learn how to do these trees and then come back to this. We're going to add something to this. Now, what if you're saying, well, Rob, how do I make this painting look like it goes way back? I see a lot of paintings that looks like there's distance. Well, I'm grabbing my fan brush. One of the ways is we can take a little bit of titanium white and a very little bit of this Prussian blue. And we can come back here, let's say in the background here, and we just make a line across. Try not to get into our tree, but if you do, you know what? It's all right. We'll come right over by the tree. A little more blue. And we're just going to lay the fan brush on the canvas and pull to the left over here. And lay it and pull and lay it and pull. You're like, Rob, that's not painting. You're just putting the brush on there and pulling it. Yes. Well, it is painting. It's simple. I told you guys some of this would be easy. Okay, we just put a distant mountain in. That's what we did right here. Using a fan brush, a little bit of Prussian blue, little tiny bit of white. So I mixed a little white, a little blue. I mean, if you go straight blue, it might be a little too dark. The farther something is away from you, like mountains, and you can go outside and test this theory, but the farther something away is, the less detail it has, the fuzzier it gets. Mountains that are far away are not going to look brown and green and real defined. They tend to look blue. Farther something is away, the more blue it has in the color of it. So it's just a law of nature. Things get bluer as they get farther away. So this distant mountain we just made has some blue in it. And maybe it comes over here. And if I can grab some blue. You might want to get a liner brush for this. The fan brush may not be the best brush, but you get the idea. So our mountain, we just put this distant mountain, it goes behind this tree. It looks farther away. Well, how can we make that look even farther away? What if we want to make that mountain look way back there? If I take and put some trees down here and make those trees really tiny, you're going to get the idea of how far away that mountain is. So, with our fan brush, let's get out of that blue. Let's go into the black and the green. Maybe a little white. Again, the farther away things are, the lighter and kind of less detailed they are. So you don't want things real dark when they're far away. You don't want them real dark. Every now and then you could have a dark spot on your mountain as like there's a ravine or something like that. But in general, we want everything to be light. So we mixed up black, green, and a little bit of white. And we are going to take our fan brush vertical. You guys with me? Let me zoom in here so you guys can see. Okay, we're going to take our fan brush. You know what? Forget this fan brush. Let's grab a liner brush and we're going to mix up some green, some black, and a little bit of titanium white. We want a lighter green. So our trees here that we did were sap green, and midnight black, and we mixed it up real dark. We're going to take that same color and add white to it and lighten up that greenish color. So we're going really light, pretty light. Everything's a test. When I paint, everything's a test. When you paint, see if you like it. It's a test, okay? But we're going to create some distant trees back here. Do you see this horizon that we put in from the first episode before we put our trees in? We did this kind of a horizon line. Now we've got a mountain there. We're going to put some little trees right on that horizon line. We're going to use a liner brush and just touch. Just touch. And we're going to do short ones and a little bit taller. And short and tall. So, I don't know if you can see that real well, but that's as big as the trees are right here. It's just little lines like that. I'm not doing giant, tree trunk lines here. And I'm just tapping, and I'm going to go into a little darker green and mix that in between those. So you go a little light, a little dark, but we're just doing tiny little trees right on that horizon line. This green line that goes across, that's our horizon line. We don't have to put them all the way across. We can leave a space. You don't have to go all the way across like you're doing a fence line. Do a little clump of trees and leave a space. Do another little group and leave a space. All that detail stuff, by doing that, and now I'm just taking my liner brush and coming across and making our horizon line. So now it looks like there's some distant trees. Maybe one of them's a little taller, so we kind of get the idea. Let's do something like this one here or that one there, and we're going to put it right here in this area. So I draw a trunk, and I'm just going to take my liner brush because the 1-inch brush is too big for this little tiny tree. So I'm just going to touch a little dot and make little clusters, little dots, and just tapping little dots at the top of that trunk. Little dots. Does that look like a tree? Kind of does look like a distant tree. All right. Now we're getting some perspective in our painting. We've got a distant mountain. We've got some distant trees. There might even be some other things back here, even farther back, like up near the mountainside. That might be a little too dark. And again, I'm just tapping in some shapes there. There might even be the indication of a mountain back here in the distance we can barely see. So I'm using my fan brush. And I'm just wisping as light as I can a little tiny bit of color. Little tiny bit. In fact, you can sometimes I take my finger and I'm going to rub it over the top of this mountain here and kind of blend it in. We definitely don't want any detail the farther something goes back. That might even be too much. So I'm going to grab my fan brush. Let's rinse it off. I think I've got a little green going on in that. Yeah, I do. Okay. Just going to tap into a little bit of this titanium white. And just come over this, the top of this mountain where I can see the peak, kind of the shape of it. And just add a little bit of white into that, kind of tone that down. Just want to barely see, but you get the idea. There's another mountain farther back there. And then over here, just going to kind of bring it. And then we can fix that. Kind of went into our tree here. Just come into that dark color. And add. And then swipe across underneath. So, you screw something up or you get into, in this case, we got it into the edge of this. It's all right. We just put it back in. In fact, we can add another little branch out here on this that comes out like this, and then come underneath and kind of give it a swipe. And again, this is just kind of a practice thing that we're doing. So keeping with our distance and perspective and that, the way we put these mountains over here way back in the distance, put some trees way back here, and we went a lighter color. Remember, the farther away something is, the lighter it gets. So what if we want to create some distance over here on this side, just like we did over here with this mountain in these distant trees? We can do that. Let's put some trees next to this one here. We are not making trees the same size. If I have two trees that are like this, there's no distance. If I have one tree that's big, look at the size of my hands. Whoa, that's trick photography. This hand's tiny, little tiny hand, big hand. That's what we're going to try to create in our painting. That's how you give the illusion that there's depth. You don't paint them right next to each other. You make one bigger and one smaller. Could be the same type of tree. All right, with that in mind, let's come into this green and black mixture. And let's say we are going to make some more of these pine trees. We do a couple of trunks. I just did what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8 different trunks. Now we're going to go with our liner brush because we're doing tiny trees. We can't use the fan brush on these little ones. It just won't work. Go with your liner brush because these are smaller. So we just put about 8 trunks in here, just lines. They're just 8 lines. Some of them are taller, some of them are shorter, but we put them in there. We are going to come up here to the top and with our liner brush, make a little line at the very top, a tiny line. We're going to do the same thing we did up here where we start, small at the top and work our way bigger. Now, sometimes you can just lay your liner brush, and sometimes you can use the tap and dot method. So let's try the tap and dot method. And what I mean by that, same thing with making this tree over here. You're doing little dots and coming back and forth and back and forth like that. And that's how we're going to do our tree. Let's get some more paint, make sure it's thin. And I suppose, I mean, you could make lines and just do like draw left and right for your tree. There we go, we've got one tree. I'm gonna go into a little more black on this one. I'm gonna go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, all the way down. A little more paint. And every time you put something, here I am. I zoomed in so you guys could see what I was doing. And I've got the ring light right on it, so you guys, hopefully the lighting, I know it's glaring off of me, but hopefully you guys can see the painting a little bit better. Every time you do one of these trees and that step back, when you're going to get some more paint, you step back and look at what you just did. Get a little more paint on your brush, go in and do the next tree. Step back and look, go in, just keep stepping back. It's good to see what your painting looks like from a distance. It's a good idea to always get used to kind of stepping back. This one maybe is just a little lighter, hardly see it. It's like farther back. The lighter we go, the farther away they are. Darker something is, gets a little closer. We're kind of going into the medium dark, and then I'm grabbing a little bit of that light green that we used earlier. And on most of these little pine trees that I'm putting in, we can see kind of the sky through the bottom. But every now and then, bring one of them down to the ground. You know, you don't have to see through every one of them. So this next one here, bring that one down near the ground. So we're going to make him a little bit bigger. He's still small, but we're making him a little bit bigger. And all the way down there. And then I'm just touching, making a couple dots, like there's something that's back there. Maybe there's one over on this side. One lone tree. There he is. Darken in his trunk. Make sure they've got a trunk on them that comes down. You don't always have to see all of the trunk, but you know, your branches are going to cover up here on this bigger one. The branches are going to cover up some of the trunk. You don't ever want to go back and draw your trunk through your branches. That will not look, it won't look realistic, because on a real pine tree, those branches come over and around and cover up that trunk. You're only going to see the trunk in a couple spots, and that's what you want to see. Same with these smaller ones. When we draw the trunk on it, we don't want to see the trunk all the way through it. We want to see just some of the trunk. Okay, there we go. We added some more distance and perspective. This pine tree here, let's bring him down just a little more, make his trunk just a little bit bigger. He's a little closer to us. How do we know he's closer? because his little friends next to him are tiny and they look farther away. We did the same pine tree. This big guy here is the same as these, but because we did these smaller, even though they're right next to it, by making this one big, it looks like it's right up here closer to us. And that's that illusion, that perspective, that distance in your painting. It's a little thing. Adding in little trees and that, you know, on a ridge line and making them tiny and going lighter in color seems like a small thing. It adds a ton to your painting. And I hope you guys are able to use that. Let's see, what else do we want to do for distance and perspective? I could put a couple here. These are farther away. And sometimes you want your brush to run out of paint because it means you're really getting a light touch. Barely any paint is coming off. And the lighter something is, the farther back it looks. So if somebody goes, wow, look at that painting. I mean, it looks like there's trees like way, way back there. You can almost barely see it. Exactly. So my brush is running out of paint here as I'm just putting vertical lines back here. It's just kind of looking like there might be a tree back here. A few trees. I think we're going to end on that. We've got, you know, distance and perspective. That's what we were working on this episode. And we put in a distant mountain or two. This one's barely, you know, visible. That's good. It means it's farther away than this mountain here that's got a little bit of blue in it. You know, if we wanted another mountain in here and we wanted it to look closer, what would we do? That's right. You'd make it darker. You don't even need to make it bigger. You just need to make it darker. So you'd go into your browns or, you know, something like that and put a mountain in, maybe coming across here or maybe in between these two and make it darker. That brings that mountain forward and it pushes the blue ones back farther away. Does that make sense? All right. But I like this. All this is a practice canvas. That's all we're doing. We're doing, you know, I'm showing you techniques and ideas that hopefully you will be able to use. How to do a tree, how to do a sky, how to do perspective, distance, that kind of thing. And you can take the simplest painting, and if you add couple little details in there, smaller trees, and make things look farther back, all of a sudden your simple painting looks like, you know, you've stepped it up a couple notches. So I hope you got something out of this. Thank you everybody for hanging out with me. Like the channel, subscribe, share this video. I will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.